My name is Richard Collins. I'm born in California from an Italian mother and American father, and my entire upbringing has been between, creating, going back and forth between these two great places. And my career has pretty much taken off that line of thought, so that I pretty much just try to create, through education, through business, a connection between the US of A and, in particular, Italy, but Europe at large. My talk title is, and what was and is, Living and Watching Oneself Live. I'm going to add a subtitle to that, which is a thing that I want all students to remember go through the next 10, 15 minutes. And that is, I'm actually taking some of this material from a professor, Sherry Turkle, who teaches at MIT. And she's written a great book, if you want to go read it, called Connected But Alone. And from that book, I've taken some of the material tonight. Essentially what I mean, and let me see if I can start off on a positive here. I'll give an example. When my daughter will send me a text, it'll be like, "Dad, have a great day," or "I had fun last weekend." That's a great text to get. And, and you never get enough of those texts. I see what happens on occasion is that text isn't complementary to the conversation we have. It begins to substitute it. And so I start living off those texts more than I do maybe an actual exchange. We've all had episodes where the parents are complaining about their kids spending too much time on the phone. But then if you took a photograph of the house, the parents are on the phone too. And so basically what you have is this portrait of two parents and two kids sitting in their home, or three friends together for an evening, and they're all three on their phone. That is, they're together, but again, to borrow the title of the book, they're together, but they're alone in their togetherness. So I want to go down this path. Getting text, sending texts are great if they're there to complete a dance that I would say begins with conversation, the real conversation. I remember in the 50s and 60s, sociologists were worried about the television, because the television was this tool which now began to accompany families having dinner. And instead of exchanging conversation, they would look at the news and maybe have a few minutes to talk about the news, but they were all tuned into the same thing. Now we all have our private television in front of us, but and three things define what we do with digital connection. And I'm going to say these slowly because they're important, I think, to get. Why are we becoming so addicted to it? And I know I'm talking to high school children, high school students now, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, you're taking away the very thing that defines our generation." And I'm going to say, I'm not taking away from it. I'm just trying to add something to what it's becoming. There are three things that are very specific, as Turkle says in her book, that make us so dependent on technology. One is that I decide where to place my attention. That is, you decide when to pick up the phone, when to put it down, and what website to go visit or what person to connect with. But you're pretty much in control of where you're going when you pick up the phone. The second aspect is that it makes you feel good, because you pick up the phone, you can send a text, you can send a voice message, you can post a photo, and you always feel like you're connected. You're always being heard. You're always being seen by somebody. Because when you put it out there, it is a community. I mean, that's the power of Instagram. And then the third comfort that comes from it is that you somehow have the sense that you never feel alone, because you're connected in the cyberspace, and you say, "Wow, who knows who's going to read this, or who knows who's going to, through a friend, find out that I posted this or whatever." But those three things, while they're true, also create a sort of loneliness. Let me give you a little metaphor here. We all know what porcupines are. Porcupines is this animal that has this defensive mechanism of these sticklers. And there's a little psychological test that's called the porcupine test. And what do porcupines do? Porcupines need to be close to each other to stay warm, but they can't get too close to each other, because they actually end up hurting each other if they get too close because of their prickles. I kind of see a dance there that goes between the digital connection and real conversation. When I see people at a dinner table and they take a photograph of their meal, and maybe it's even getting cold, and they send it to somebody maybe across town or across the globe, or even worse, they send it to the person across the table, I'm wondering what happened to the days where you actually reach your plate, said, "This is good," and you let the person next to you taste it. What I'm trying to get across here is digital connection is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. With the pandemic, I gave a talk, as you said, Ralph, about a year and a half ago, year and 8 months ago, when we were just getting into this. And I remember talking to the students where in the rest of the world it hadn't really hit yet, but in Italy, we were hit first in the Western world. And so we were kind of this example for the rest of the world. Well, how are you guys coping? And it was tough. I mean, you found yourself locked in 4 rooms. In the beginning, I said, well, these students are lucky because at our age, if this had happened, we didn't have a digital tool. We would have knocked down the wall by headbutting it all night long to get out of the house. So the point I'm making is there are good uses of the digital tool. But I think a lot of us are going into Zoom dormancy right now, that we're spending so much time on the screen, and the screen satisfies in the connection process, but it takes away from, you're trying to read the person's body, or trying to even, get an idea of the room they're in, or maybe the smells that are involved, or all the other senses are sort of put on the second place. What Turkle says is that if you're always seeking connection with those 3 categories, you decide where to go, who to send it to, you're going to be heard, want to be seen because you posted, and it gives you a sense of never being alone. You're with your family, go to bed. Before I go to bed tonight, I'm going to, write somebody, text somebody, WhatsApp somebody. That kind of obsessive connection is if it goes too far, is going to lead to isolation. So I really wanted to do this evening with you, with the students, to try to just get them to think a little bit about, find some spaces in your, whether it's dinner, 30 minutes, 20 minutes with the family, with your friends. Don't bring the phone to the table. Try that live conversation. If you just had a Zoom meeting and you learned something, rather than turn that around and text 100 friends about that Zoom meeting, take that Zoom meeting to the table and have a conversation with your parents, with your friends, with your siblings. Try to get that live conversation to sort of play that little dance with the porcupine and say, why don't I try having a conversation about this as opposed to this digiting who I want to digit about this. If you take this to the level of the photograph, since I talked about watching yourself live, let me leave you with 2 images, and then I'll open up to questions. You can watch somebody walk down the street, and rather than think about the street they're walking on, or looking at the buildings, or even people watching, which is fun, you'll see some people constantly look into every window to see if they look right, if their hair is done right. That would be a process of watching oneself live. But if you're too busy watching yourself live, which means taking 1,000 photographs, picking the right one, posting that as if that is what you look like 24 hours a day, you're going to kind of miss your life. You're going to miss the pieces in between, which is, I don't always look perfect, and that's fine. My thoughts aren't always about who can I post this to, or who can I send this message to, but you might be caught up in the moment, so that digital connection becomes a secondary factor and not the reason you're having that experience. I want to apologize to the students because I know I'm coming across as the old guy who doesn't get the digital world and is telling you, go back to the old ways. No, I'm saying embrace the digital world, but make it work in your direct experience, as opposed to the digital experience being the experience. I think I'll stop there for now if there are any questions, and we'll see what, I hope, hopefully all the questions aren't directed to me in an aggressive way.
No, they're not. I've already gotten some emailed, as well as some in the chats, but this reminds me of a Henry David Thoreau quote: "Men have become the tools of their own tools." So they become the tools of their own inventions. So an added thing to your lecture to the students, do you guys think that too much technology is a good thing or a bad thing? One of the students actually sent in a question to me. I believe the student is in Florida, and they wanted to know what are some other ways that you could recommend minimizing the use of technology for kids today?
Well, that's a great question, and I would answer it in 2 parts. One is somehow we think that our digital connection is MySpace, right? Because I decide when to connect on the phone, when to connect to Instagram, what to send out. but I would look for a space that doesn't depend on anything that needs a battery, if that helps out. And I'm not saying, leave your phone at home. That's not going to happen, obviously. But maybe throughout the day, find 10-minute, 15-minute segments where you forget the phone in the other room intentionally. So you're not forgetting it, you're leaving it there. And that you don't allow technology, because when you get sucked in the digital connection, all of a sudden somebody sends you a message, now you're looking up something else, and you get sucked into this time war. Literally find a way to not have the iPad or the phone or computer right there. And throughout the day, I would just say start out with 10-minute segments, maybe one in the morning when you wake up, go outside. I'm not saying pick up a book. I'm just saying my daughter, for example, on occasion will, in the morning she wakes up and she'll say, how cold is it outside? And she'll go online. And I tell her, don't go online to see the temperature, open the window. Maybe the breeze outside will give you a good indication as to what the weather's like. Just little things to which you are experiencing what's happening, and you're not getting the information through a digital connection.
One of the kids messaged, they want to know, do you think that your message is, about your lecture is more so about having a balance? That's why I brought up the porcupine episode. It is because I did this years ago. I was like, okay, enough with Facebook, enough. Let's just get back into the field and play sports together, and let's go do something together. And that's a lost battle. And Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp or whatever tool you're using, they all have a purpose. I just think now we're on that cusp where technology might take us to places that we don't want to go to. So let technology serve your interest, and don't let technology determine your interests. That's very interesting that you bring that up. I mean, we have this day and age, at least here in America. I'm not sure if you guys have this problem in Italy, but the whole fake news thing where something on CNN is something completely opposite on Fox News. So we have no idea what's the truth or what's going on. So how would you suggest to combat that? Because we get our news digitally.
So put it this way, Ralph. I mean, you have athletes who refuse to listen to common sense, and there's a few examples I can think of without naming it. And now people, when they say I'm going to go do some research, to them research means going on Instagram or tapping into some tool saying, oh, well, this guy in Alaska said this. Doing research is about connecting to people who do the research, to professors, to scientists, to people that publish. Doing research is, this is what I believe because this is the research I've done. But because it's a digital tool and we pick up a phone or an iPad and we're looking at printed language all the time, we kind of confuse that with real scientific research. And so there's a danger there that because in form it looks like it's official, we begin like fake news. If you got fake news on a roll of toilet paper somebody left on your front door written by hand, you wouldn't give it a second's thought. But the digital age has made it so fake news is you can't really separate it from real news because every source seems to be equal and powerful. And I would say check your resources. For example, when it came to the pandemic, I was always checking with Johns Hopkins University, which has the best collection data center in the world. Everybody uses that. So why would I listen to Fred down the street who just posted something when Johns Hopkins is giving me data from the entire globe?
One of the kids messaged, they wanted to know, where do you see technology in regard to society in the future?
Well, I'm here to try to motivate students. So part of my answers is, if we keep going in this direction, we are entering into a robotic age. My partner is now doing a graduate degree in psychology, and she's gotten to this chapter where some psychologists believe that we've already entered that sphere where we are becoming so robotic without realizing it, and that somehow our emotions, our sentiments are taking that is, we don't even have time to have the emotion because I'm there now, moving on to the next thing, or the technology is bringing to the next thing it wants to bring to the screen. I think though, with this generation and the fact that these questions are coming through, the fact that some students are even listening to me make this presentation, tells me that students are getting aware. And I am told that today students in high school and college do go through phases where they back off from technology a little bit. to listen to their heartbeat, to listen to their breathing patterns. They go for walks. Maybe they play with their pet more as opposed to taking pictures of the pet and sending them to people. So there are ways we can do it. It's not a difficult thing. And the game is let technology in, but don't let technology decide where you're going once you let it in.
Absolutely. And that's some really good advice. And, if I can just add, you guys, we all have free will. As I talk to you, ironically, on a Zoom call, but you have free will to put the device down and take time just for yourself, and so that's a really good message. So, Professor Collins, before we let you go, is there any advice that you can give to these kids as they go off into the world and kind of become the individuals they're meant to be?
Yeah, I would say one bit of advice, as you create these little 10-minute, 15-minute gaps of your time away from any tool, also remember that we learn a lot more from each other when we engage each other. And technology tends to not do that. Technology tends to edit it. We tend to be able to show our best package of ourselves. But even if it's not always easy, engage with people, debate people, get into that element of, and then let technology serve a purpose. But engage people authentically. Be in the room where you are. If a friend's talking to you, don't be messaging someone else or doing something else while that friend's talking to you. Engage the conversation, be real, be present, and let that dance begin.
I have a couple more student questions. Is that all right if we get through those before you let you go?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So Emma, I think she's actually one of your students in Italy, but Emma has a question for you. You had a really interesting question. That kind of came to mind. She is unable to unmute. She would like to know if you think our world in the future is just going to be like the one from the film WALL-E. Have you ever seen this? If not, I can kind of give you the gist.
No, I know of it. I
Okay.
know what it is. I don't think. I don't think no. I mean, those are works of art that tend to maybe even in a humoristic way or in a sarcastic way tell us what might come down the pipeline. If you guys want to go listen to a great guy on this, there's a gentleman called Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's the president of the Hayden Planetarium. He's also involved with NASA. And he has a lot of really good YouTube debates or even short pieces in which I'm using technology as I tell you to go research them. But he's very optimistic about the fact that the machine will not overtake us and that we will not become puppets of our own world. But it's going to take work. It's not going to happen on technology. Is not going to let us go. We have to tell technology, I accept you this far, and now I want the human quality to come out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message to have limits, because too much of anything is bad. Even too much exercise is bad. So I will give the final question. Sorry.
About 2 weeks ago, this happened, all over the world. My daughter called me up. She was freaking out. She's 12 going on 13 because WhatsApp was down. And she literally could not understand what was down. And I really had a hard time saying, listen, it's not the end of the world. I'm saying that's the fear I have, that, if we were to lose technological connection for a week, I think it might be a good thing in the sense that people will say, I can actually spend my day doing something else. But the immediate impact would be devastating because, oh my God, where's my phone? Is my heart still beating?
Yeah, it's almost like an extension of their body, sometimes, which is absolutely nuts. So
think about when you're in an elevator, you're on the street, instead of saying hello to the person next to you or just making a comment, everybody's on their phone. You don't even see the people around you. That's the disconnect that happens from technological connection.
That's a really good quote. So I'll let the final question go to Mev. She's one of your students in Italy. Mev, go ahead and ask.
Hello, Mr. Collins.
Hello.
I would like to know do you think that we can use technology in the workplace, also in life in the future?
Well, sure. I mean, I think technology, it was initially born out of a necessity for the workplace and for military purposes too. So again, imagine what we would have gone through the last 2 years without technology. Home working, smart working is good for some sectors. For other sectors, it's not as good. But there's nothing that I've said tonight that I want you guys to think that I'm saying get rid of your phone, get rid of technology. I'm saying take it into your life, make it part of your life, but you be the one to determine how you use it, where you use it, and give yourself pockets, because technology is going to be faster than you. It's going to keep you salivating and wanting more. You simply say to yourself, off, done. Little pockets, 15 minutes one day, half an hour. My favorite activity in the world is sailing. And it's because when I'm out in the boat, often I don't have Wi-Fi or the internet. And, for half an hour, I'm freaking out saying, what if the office calls me? What if my parents need something? What if my daughter needs something? What if my partner needs something? And then half an hour after I'm out there, I forget that I don't have a connection. And I think you guys, you can make that jump. It's here to stay. You're going to use it for school, and you should. You're going to use it for work. But you have to determine how you use it, how long you use it.